Get out of here. You smell. The words landed harder than the shove. The man barely flinched as the security guard pushed him back toward the revolving doors. Around them, heels clicked, suits whispered past, and faces twisted in irritation. No one stopped. No one questioned it. No one recognized him. Because to them, he was just another homeless man who had wandered too far inside a place meant for people who mattered. What they did not know was that the building they were standing in did not belong to the corporation. It belonged to him. Before this story unfolds, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Stories like this remind us that appearances lie, power hides quietly, and judgment always comes before regret. Stay till the end, because what happens next will change how you see silence forever. The Alcott Tower rose like a polished monument in the heart of the city. 48 floors of glass and steel, marble floors that reflected the wealth of everyone who walked across them. A place where money moved faster than morality, where people shook hands that could ruin lives by lunchtime. It housed lawyers, hedge fund managers, tech executives, and private equity firms that swallowed companies whole and called it growth. And on the ground floor, beneath a chandelier worth more than most homes, stood a man who did not belong. At least that was what everyone believed. His clothes were layered and worn thin by time, a frayed coat that had once been navy now faded to grey, shoes cracked at the soles, a knit cap pulled low over unkempt hair. His beard was full, peppered with white, and his skin carried the dull exhaustion of someone who slept in places never meant for rest. He carried no bag, no sign, no cup, just himself. He stood quietly near the directory, eyes scanning the names engraved in gold lettering as if searching for something that had once been familiar. People noticed him immediately. They always did, but not because they cared. A woman in a beige coat slowed her pace and wrinkled her nose. A man walking beside her glanced at the homeless figure and subtly guided her around him, as though proximity alone carried risk. Two young analysts whispered, "Did security miss one again? I swear, this place is going downhill." The man heard everything. He always did. Years on the streets had sharpened his awareness. He knew how people spoke when they thought he was invisible. He knew the tone they used when they believed he was beneath response. Still, he did not move. Not yet. He checked the time on the old analog watch beneath his sleeve. The glass was scratched, the leather strap worn thin. 9:12 a.m. He was early. That, at least, had not changed. The front desk was staffed by a young woman named Clarissa. She had worked in the building for 3 years and considered herself good at her job. She knew most tenants by face. She smiled when she was supposed to. She enforced rules without apology. And rules were simple. People like him did not belong. She watched him from behind the polished counter, fingers tightening around her keyboard. The longer he stood there, the more uncomfortable she felt. Not because he had done anything, but because his presence disrupted the image. Finally, she cleared her throat. "Sir," he turned calmly. "Yes?" His voice was steady, low, polite. Clarissa hesitated for half a second. Something about his eyes unsettled her. They were sharp, observant, not vacant the way she expected. Still, procedure was procedure. "You cannot loiter here." "I am not loitering." Her smile stiffened. "This is a private building." "I am aware." "Then you need to leave. I will be meeting someone." Her eyebrows lifted. "Do you have an appointment?" "Yes." "With who?" He glanced back at the directory once more, then returned his gaze to her. "Myself." For a moment, she thought she misheard him. Then she laughed, not loudly, not cruelly, just enough to be dismissive. "That is not funny," she said. "Please leave before I have to call security." He nodded once. "I will wait." That was when Marcus arrived. Marcus was 6'4", built like someone who enjoyed his authority too much. He had worked security for 10 years and considered this building his kingdom. He followed Clarissa's pointed gaze. The homeless man stood exactly where he had been before. Marcus approached him with long, confident strides. "Hey," Marcus said, "you cannot be here." The man turned again. "Yes, you already said that." Marcus frowned. "Do not get smart with me." "I am not." "Then leave." "I will not." That was enough. Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Get out of here. You smell." The words were sharp, public, designed to shame. A few people slowed down. Some pretended not to listen. Others watched openly. The man inhaled slowly. "Do not touch me," he said. Marcus smirked. "Or what?" The man did not answer. Marcus placed a hand on his chest and shoved him back a step.
Everyone believed Daniel Kalu was dead. The police believed it. The town believed it. Even the man who shared his blood eventually learned how to live like it was true. Daniel vanished 12 years ago on a rainy night that swallowed sound and memory. One moment he was a brother laughing in the kitchen. The next he was a name spoken in past tense. No body was found. No final call was made. Just a trail that ended in mud, rumors, and silence. What nobody prepared Matthew Kalu for was the sound. A knock. Not loud, not desperate. Just 3 slow taps on his front door at exactly 11:47 at night. If you are listening to this story, make sure you stay until the end and share it with someone you trust. Stories like this remind us that the past never stays buried, and ignoring truth always comes with a price. Matthew stood frozen in his living room, remote dangling from his fingers as the television continued to talk to an empty space. The knock came again. 3 taps. Calm, certain, like whoever stood outside already knew Matthew would open the door. He did not want to move. His chest tightened in a way he had not felt since the night the police stopped asking questions. Since the night his mother screamed into a pillow so the neighbors would not hear. Since the night Matthew learned what guilt sounded like when it breathed. He told himself it was nothing. A neighbor, a mistake, a drunk stranger. But deep inside, something older than logic had already recognized the rhythm. Matthew walked slowly, every step heavy, every breath measured. His hands shook as he reached the handle. The porch light outside flickered once, twice, then stayed on. When the door opened, the past stepped forward. Daniel stood there, taller than Matthew remembered, thinner, sharper. His hair was longer, pulled back carelessly, his face marked with scars that told stories Matthew did not want to hear. His eyes were the worst part. They were no longer warm or reckless or alive in the way brothers recognize instantly. They were cold, measured, and full of something that had learned how to wait. Matthew tried to speak. No sound came out. Daniel smiled, but it was not a smile meant to comfort. It was the kind meant to remind. "You look surprised," Daniel said. His voice was deeper, rougher, like it had been scraped raw by years of silence. "Did you think I was dead forever?" Matthew staggered back. His legs gave way and he had to grab the door frame to stay upright. "You are dead," Matthew whispered. "They said you were dead." Daniel stepped inside without asking. The door closed behind him with a quiet final click that echoed louder than any scream. "They said a lot of things," Daniel replied. "You believed them." Matthew's living room suddenly felt too small. The walls pressed in as memories he had buried clawed their way back to the surface. Daniel took his time looking around, touching the furniture, the photographs, the framed certificates. "You did well for yourself," Daniel said. "Nice house, quiet street, good job. Looks like the world moved on." Matthew swallowed. Where have you been? Daniel turned slowly. You know where I have been. No, Matthew said quickly. I do not. I searched. I waited. I talked to the police. I did everything. Daniel laughed softly. Everything except tell the truth. The words landed like a slap. Matthew felt his throat tighten. I do not know what you mean. Daniel walked closer. Every step felt deliberate, rehearsed. He stopped inches from Matthew's face. You left me, Daniel said. You watched me disappear and you let them close the case. That is not true, Matthew said, his voice breaking. I thought you were gone. I thought you were dead. Daniel leaned in, his breath warm, his eyes sharp. You thought wrong. Silence filled the room, thick and suffocating. Outside, a car passed, headlights sweeping across the window like a reminder that the world still existed beyond this moment. Daniel stepped back and sat down on the couch like he had every right to be there, like this was still his home. 12 years, Daniel said. 12 years of waking up hungry. 12 years of sleeping with one eye open. 12 years of remembering the look on your face when you decided I was not worth saving. Matthew sank into a chair across from him. His hands trembled. Tell me, Matthew said quietly. Tell me what happened. Daniel's smile faded. His eyes darkened. Do you really want to know? He asked. Or do you want the version that lets you sleep at night? Matthew closed his eyes. He saw flashes of the past. The night everything broke. The argument. The fear. The choice. Tell me everything, Matthew said. Daniel nodded. Good, because I came back to make sure you remember. The night Daniel disappeared started like any other. The brothers had argued before. They always did. Daniel was reckless, angry at the world, unwilling to accept the quiet life Matthew wanted. Matthew was careful, cautious, always afraid of losing what little stability they had left after their father died. That night, Daniel had come home furious. They are going to ruin us, Daniel shouted, pacing the kitchen. They want me to take the fall. Matthew knew who he meant, the men they worked for, the men who smiled in public and destroyed lives in private. Lower your voice, Matthew warned. Someone might hear. Let them hear, Daniel snapped. I am done being their scapegoat. Matthew grabbed his arm. You cannot just walk away. You know what they do to people who talk. Daniel pulled free. Then help me. Matthew hesitated. That hesitation lasted only a second. It lasted 12 years. Daniel stormed out into the rain. Matthew watched from the doorway, heart pounding, telling himself Daniel would cool off and come back, telling himself this was not the night everything would end. Hours later, the police came. They asked questions Matthew did not know how to answer. They looked at him like they already suspected something. When the men they worked for arrived with lawyers and smiles, Matthew said nothing. He told himself he was protecting himself, protecting his mother, protecting what little life they had. Daniel vanished into the dark, and Matthew let him. Back in the present, Daniel finished speaking. That is the last night you remember, Daniel said, but it was just the beginning for me. Matthew's eyes were wet. I was afraid. Daniel nodded. So was I. Matthew looked up. Why now? Daniel stood. His shadow stretched long across the wall. Because the people who erased me are still breathing, Daniel said, and because you helped them do it. Matthew shook his head. I did not help them. I was trapped. Daniel moved toward the door. You have 1 week, Daniel said. 1 week to decide who you really are. The door opened. If you warn them, Daniel added without turning around, you will wish you had stayed silent forever. The door closed. Matthew was alone again, but the dead had returned, and they were angry.
What is going on? System glitch? Marcus straightened. Hey, Clarissa, what did you touch? I did not touch anything, she said quickly, fingers flying over her keyboard. The system just logged me out. That was when the elevators chimed. The private lift. The one no one ever used. The doors opened, and the homeless man stepped out. Silence fell in layers. At first, no one recognized him. Then someone gasped. "What is he doing here?" Marcus took 2 steps forward automatically. "You again?" The man did not look at him. He walked calmly to the center of the lobby and stopped. Only then did he speak. "Good morning." His voice carried, not loud, not forced, commanding. People froze. Clarissa stood slowly. "How did you get in here?" "I never left," he replied. Marcus reached for his radio. It crackled uselessly. "What is this?" Marcus snapped. "Who are you?" The man turned his head slightly, eyes settling on Marcus with quiet focus. "My name," he said, "is Elias Rowan." The name hit the room like a dropped glass. Someone whispered it. Another turned pale. A woman near the elevators clutched her purse. "No," someone said softly. "That is not possible." Elias continued. "I founded this building." Marcus laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "That is funny." "It is not," Elias replied. The screens behind Clarissa flickered back on, but they did not show security feeds. They showed documents, blueprints, old photographs. A younger man standing beside a skeletal steel frame, signing papers, shaking hands, his face unmistakable. Elias Rowan, founder, sole owner. Marcus felt his mouth go dry. Clarissa stared at the screen. This must be fake." Elias did not respond. Instead, he reached into his coat and removed the black access card. He placed it gently on the desk. "Verify it." Clarissa's hands shook as she scanned it. The system chimed. Full access granted. Her screen filled with alerts. Ownership records, control permissions, override authority. Her breath caught. "Oh my God!" Marcus stepped back. "You are lying," he said, but his voice lacked conviction now. "You were outside. You were dirty," Elias finished. Marcus swallowed. Elias walked toward him, each step slow, measured. The crowd parted instinctively. "You said I smelled," Elias said calmly, "that I did not belong." Marcus could not speak. "I built this place when no one else believed it would stand," Elias continued. "I slept in my car while investors laughed. I ate cold meals on this very floor before there were chandeliers." He stopped an arm's length from Marcus. "And today," he said quietly, "you threw me out." The silence was unbearable. Clarissa broke it. "I am so sorry," she whispered. "We did not know." Elias looked at her. "You did not ask." She lowered her eyes. Elias turned to the crowd. "Everyone here made a choice this morning," he said. "Some chose comfort. Some chose cruelty. Most chose silence." He paused. "I am not here for revenge." Marcus exhaled in relief. "I am here," Elias said, "for truth." The lobby doors opened again. This time, 5 men in tailored suits entered. At their center was a woman in her early 40s, posture sharp, eyes alert. She saw Elias and smiled. "You finally came back," she said. Elias inclined his head. "I had to see it for myself." She turned to the stunned employees. "My name is Naomi Carter," she said. "Chief Legal Officer." She held up a folder. "These are termination notices." A gasp rippled through the room. Naomi continued. "For discriminatory conduct, abuse of authority, and violation of ownership protocol." She handed the first envelope to Marcus. His hands trembled as he opened it. "You cannot do this," he said hoarsely. "I was just doing my job." "No," Elias said. "You were doing what you thought you could get away with." Marcus's face collapsed. Security escorted him toward the exit. This time, no one laughed. As Marcus disappeared through the doors, Elias turned back to Clarissa. "You will keep your job," he said. She looked up in shock. "Because fear makes people cruel," Elias continued, "but ignorance can be taught." Tears welled in her eyes. "Thank you." Elias nodded once. Then he looked around the lobby one last time. "This building was never meant to keep people out," he said. "It was meant to remind us who we become when we forget where we started." Upstairs, executives scrambled, phones rang, meetings dissolved, power shifted. And for the first time in years, Alcott Tower belonged to its owner again. Elias stepped back into the private elevator. As the doors closed, his phone vibrated. Another message. "They are panicking." Elias allowed himself a small, tired smile. "Good," he typed back. Outside, the city continued as if nothing had changed. But inside the tower, everything had, and it was only beginning.